This is Gemara Nedarim Daf Chof Aleph as you begin a new incredible parak, the third parak of Nedarim. Today's daf has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the daf as a Zchus Refuah Shalema for Elisha Gabriel ben Toba. Emir Hashem, the learning the entire Chabura should bring Elisha Gabriel ben Toba an incredible and complete Refuah Shlema. Anyone else who would like to sponsor the daf, please feel free to reach out. We love to partner to spread Torah. We're holding on the top line. Arba Nedarim Itir Chachamim Nidre's reason. So the four types of Nedarim that the Chazal were matir. They permitted on the bottom of Chafam and Beis, category number one, Nidre's reason. A neder to be mizarez, to encourage and motivate oneself to do something. Number two is Nidrei Havai, a neder of nothingness, of exaggeration. Number three is Nidrei Shkagos, you make a neder by mistake. And number four are Nidrei Oinsin. You make a neder that is an oinis, it's out of your control. So explains the Mishnah, category number one, Nidrei's reason, case out. What is this case of a neder's reason? Ruvain is selling an item, and Shimon comes along, and Ruvain says, I am not going lower than a selah. 4 dinar, rock bottom. I can't sell it cheaper. And the potential buyer Shimon says, I am not going higher than a shekel, which is 2 dinars. We have a stalemate. The seller doesn't want to go lower than 4 dinar. The buyer doesn't want to go higher than 2 dinar. What happens now? And the problem is, they didn't just say I won't go higher. They said kainam. They said I'm making a neder. I'm not going higher. And then of course, lo and behold, what happens as we turn over to Chaf Amud Aleph? Shneim writes in b'shleisha dinarim. At the end of the day, they both agree upon 3 nidar. So even though one might think that this would be a case that there should be a problem, because how can you potentially sell it for 3 dinarim if you said I'm not going lower than 4 dinarim? And that's where the Mishnah is coming to teach us that no, this is called Nidrei Havai. This is called Nidrei's reason. Say neder just to be mezarez in order to push one along to continue to motivate him to make the sale, and therefore the neder is not a real neder, and therefore when they eventually agree on the price of 3 dinarim, it is perfectly fine. Says the Gemara in Chaval from Beis. Arba Nedarim Itiru Chachamim v'chulu. Amri Rav Avi Bar Mamul Rav Ami. Amri Elon Mishmei Rav Yehuda. You said over the name of Rav Yehuda Nisiya. Man Tana Arba Nedarim. Classical as Gemaras often do, especially New Parakim. Who is this Tana of our Mishnah that listed these 4 Nedarim? Explains the Gemara Rav Yehudi. It's Rav Yehuda. The Amr Shabbat Tarfin. This should hopefully sound familiar. La'olam. The rule that all Naziros has to be bahafla, that the only way that you have a real Naziros if it's perfectly and explicitly clear. Hafla. So says Rav Yehuda, that's the only time you have a Naziros. So the Gemara is borrowing the terminology of Rav Yehuda and saying that's our Mishnah, that the only time it's a neder when it's perfectly clear you want to make a neder. But when you're making a nidrei's reason, I said I'm not going to go lower than 4. You said I'm not going to go higher than 2. That's not a real hafla. It's not you want it to be a neder. Rather, it just be mazaris, and that is source number 1. Opinion number 1 of our Mishnah is going to be Rav Yehuda. Rava Amar, no. Afilu Temer Rabban, and we could even say the Mishnah is the Rabban. Mikotanu Shneim Ratzu, says Rava, let's hone in on the Mishnah. The Mishnah did not say they both agreed, Ratzu, which would mean that was their mindset all along. Then that would only go with Rav Yehuda, that has to be explicitly clear. Shneim Raitzin Katani, what the Mishnah says, they both are agreeable. Right now, they both, at the end of the day, have come to terms with a sale of 3 dinarim, and that is the reason why it works, because it's a neder to be mizares yourself, and therefore says Rava, it's nothing to do with Rav Yehuda or not. It's nothing to do with a naziros, a neder having to be a hafla, have to be explicit and clear. No, Everyone could agree to this because Shneim writes in. What it means is they're all agreeable that when I say I'm not going lower than 2, higher than 2, and you say you're not going lower than 4, really included that is that we all are agreeing that we'll come to terms with 3. So the Mishnah can either be Rav Yehuda or the Rabbanan. So Amar Le Ravina the Ravashi, smack in the middle of the Amud Chaval V'Amud Aleph, says Ravina to Ravashi, Amar Loi Tfei Misel. If let's say the seller says, I am not going lower than a little bit more than a seller, $1.25, 5 dinarim. And the buyer says, Bater mishekel. I am not going anything less than a shekel, 4 dinarim. Nidra have or zrizin have? Is this considered to be a neder, or is it still considered that they are being mizares themselves? So for a moment over here, let's scroll all the way down and let's see the Ran. The Ran over here explains what's going on. The seller says, Tfei mi seller, on the third very wide line at the bottom of the Hamid, Kaleimar. He didn't just say, I'm not going to go lower than Hasela. He said explicit the price. I'm not going lower than a seller and a pruta. And the buyer said, I'm making an ed that I'm not going higher than a shekel bachas pruta. So on this, ask the Gemara, do we say, Nidra Havai is reason Havai? Continuing in the Ran for a moment. That's the shayla. Do we say that because he was so explicit, so he had in mind to be making an eder, v'loy lizaris, or not? That is the fundamental shayla of the Gemara. So Amar Lei. So Rav Ashi responds to Ravina, Tanina, this is indeed a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, classical story, you want someone to eat over, and unfortunately you're pushing too far, and the person just wants to get you off their back. He says, Koinam, I make a neder bischashani. I am not going into your house. You're harassing me to eat by you. He says, I'm making a neder. I'm not going to even walk through your front door. Or, Tiba Sainin, I'm making a neder that on a drop of cold water, Shani Tayim, that I will not taste from your house. What's the halacha? You're both allowed to enter his house and as well drink cold drinks from him. Why? That what was his intent? We read a bit deep into his words. In as much as he said, I make a neder not to enter into your house. I made a neder not to drink your drinks. What he really meant is, I'm not coming over for the Shabbos to get off my back. I don't want to eat and drink with you. However, but he never meant he's not going to enter into the house or drink a cup of water. V'amai. And says the Gemara, now why is he allowed to drink the water? He said explicit. He didn't say I'm not going to eat or drink. He said it specifically, I'm not going to have one sip of water. Ella, so rather, what do we see from this brisa? Mishtoi inish hacha. People talk this way. People say specific things even when they're exaggerating. Hachinami mishtoi inish hacha. So too in our case, so makes a neder, I'm not going to go lower than $1.25, and he makes a neder, I'm not going to go higher than 75 cents or whatever it is, even though they gave specific amounts, still it is considered that they're just talking that way. It's Nidra's reason. It's just to motivate, just to move the things along. And it's not a real neder. Amar lei, so Ravina responds, as we turn over to Chaf Aleph Amid Beis, Mi Dami, says Ravina, is there a comparison? Kavit Soinein. This is what we have in these week's parashas. Says Ravina, I don't get it. When it comes to Soinein, when it comes to the fact I'm not going to drink a drink of water from you, Tzadikim, what is the hallmark of a tzaddik? He says a little bit and then he does a ton. So that's why. But in our case, in our case, we're not sure. When someone made explicit neder with a precise dollar amount, tell mabachs misel of yoiser al shekel, kamar uzrizin avay. Meaning maybe you are right, and it was just words to keep things along. It was words to be mizaris to move along this sale. So says the Gemara, you don't have a right for that case. T by e, as we've learned already, that's the Nedarim term for teiku. We have to wait for Eliyahu Hanavi to answer up this question. And we continue in the Gemara, 5 lines down, says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi. Says Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav Asi, honing in on the din of the Mishnah, Arba Nedarim Halalu, Srichel Nishila Lechacham. These 4 Nedarim in the Mishnah, which the Mishnah said, let's remind ourselves, we highlighted it when we highlighted everything, but we pointed it out when we read the Mishnah said, Heitiru Chachamim. And says Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav Asi, Habar Nedarim Srichen She'ela L'Chacham. They need to actually ask a Chacham to undo them. What do you mean? Tana Tnei Arba Nedarim Heitiru Chachamim. Vat Amrit Srichen She'ela L'Chacham. I don't understand, asks Shmuel. The Mishnah explicitly said that they're mutter. And you're telling me that they're required to undo them with a Chacham? And therefore he argues. Rabbi Yosef Masal Shmaitza B'Hai Lishna. Rabbi Yosef learns the same Gemara with a little bit of a different lashon. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi, Ein Chacham Rashe Lahatir Elikein Arba Nedarim Halalu. Says Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav Ashi, a different detail that we're taking out of our Mishnah. That these 4 categories are precise. Only these. Says the Gemara, from here we go into a new topic. Kosavar, for the fact Rav Yehuda, the name of Rav Asi, is saying that only these 4 are that which we're being makel on. Kosavar, that shows us, you know what the Mishnah holds? Ein poischim becharata. The Mishnah holds that we in Bezdin, we the Chachamim, do not start off showing a person that he could be regretting. Rather, if he does it on his own, that's fine, but we ourselves do not. That is the reason why only these 4 are the ones that are going to be mutter. We conclude today with lots of stories. As your heart's still upon you, do you really still feel that same conviction that you felt when you made the neder? Amar le loy, no. Visharye, and therefore he permitted his neder. Another story. Let's say at the moment that you made a neder, there were 10 people there convincing you that it wasn't a good idea. Mina darta, would you have made the neder? Amar le loy. No, I would not have a tiru, and therefore they were makel. Tanya, we learned in the Brayso, if you die, Adam. We tell a person, there we go. Leiv alecha. Where did all my highlighting just go? We tell a person, Leiv alecha. Was your heart upon you? Adam leiv ze alecha. Im amar lav. If he says no, then matir naisai. We permit the neder. We continue the stories. Rabbi Yishmael, Rav Yesi, Omer, Misham, Aviv, Shov, Rav Yesi says the name of his father. There were 10 people there that would have appeased you. We continue with the same theme of stories. There was someone that came in front of Rav Asi, Amar Le, Kadoi Ties. This is the Aramaic to mean, do you regret making the neder? Amar Le, Loi. He says, have I not? But to me, the Ran says, have I not? Of course I did. That's why I'm coming here. And he permitted that neder. He came in front of Rav Elazar and he said, Be'is nidar, do you still want your neder? Is it still a good neder? And he responded, if they didn't anger me, I would never have made the neder, showing that he made the neder, not because he wanted to. So Amar Le, so Rav Elazar responded, Tehi kebayis, it should be like your wish, the neder is undone. And finally, actually this story we're going to stop, because this story goes on to the next summit. We don't have the next summit in front of us. We'll pick up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.